Mike's on. Mike's on. Ready for prime time? Okay, let's call the meeting of the Natural Resources Commission back to order. The next item on the agenda, of course, is the public comment period, so it is 1:15, and I want to introduce Brooke Marmley to go through the public appearance guidelines.
Hi everyone. For those of you that signed up before the end of the day last Friday, you have 5 minutes to give your comments today. And if you did not sign up last week and would like to provide comment, you can fill out a card in the back and we'll have that brought up here and you can give your comments today. When you have 1 minute left, I will hold up the 1 minute sign. And when your time is up, I will hold up the time please sign and we ask that you please bring your comments to a close. If you could please state your name for the record, we'd appreciate it. Also remember to use your microphone. And I'd just like to say we received a lot of emails last week, so I believe there are some individuals that I may have missed that signed up for 5 minutes. So just please let us know and we will give you that time today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brooke. And before we get started, if I could just make one additional request, not so much for the participants, but for commissioners. If there is a need for a clarifying question, in other words, if there's some unclarity or lack of clarity or uncertainty about a comment that's being made, I think I'm willing to entertain a question from a commissioner to one of the presenters, but this is not a public hearing, it's not a witness situation, and I know we've had sometimes in the past a bit of colloquy between members providing commentary and commissioners. In order to be respectful of the long list of people who are waiting to have their chance to speak, I want to encourage commissioners to only ask clarifying questions if necessary, and if there's a need for further discussion, to take that offline or bring that up during the commissioner report section of the meeting. Let's see, where are we? No, there we are. Gotcha. Okay. First, in the 5 minute comment period, Nicole Fiber or Beaver?
Fiber.
Fiber. Okay. I think I asked you the same thing last time.
Take a walk in the woods.
Right, right.
All right,
Proceed.
That's a green light. So let me do my little timer as well if you don't mind. So help me out. Okay. So, 준비가 Nicole 기회받은 additional 로베나 스마다와 미션 백회 미시게 도된 회전 결과 아무바는 합니다. So I wanted to take a long view of it here today and acquiesce to the reality of this shared moment we are in, where we are collectively witnessing the 6th mass extinction, and where less than 4% of the animals on the earth are wildlife. So I want to talk about habitat connectivity. And when we have habitat loss, what are the repercussions of that? We've seen some of them today in the presentations with disease, such as chronic wasting disease, the kind of bovine tuberculosis, because when there's stress, we become more susceptible to disease as people, and the same with animals. The increase in conflicts, right, so-called, the original caretakers of the forest, like bears, wolves, to a lesser degree coyotes, when they don't have anywhere to go, then they're going to go to places where humans are. Deer damage, those permits for deer damage. Well, again, when farms become forage, because where else are they going to get food? So another consequence of habitat loss is scarcity, right? I remember a meeting recently, people talking about the scarcity of bears on public lands because there's the lack of the forest cover that there used to be. We have degradation with rivers getting hotter and lots of fish species. The overgrazing of deer in forest lands. When there's too many deer, not only do we have diseases, but also the loss of maples, those saplings, those small ones that don't have a chance to become trees. So I feel like we're at the point of a reckoning, right? And part of it is maybe to consider what or who is the actual nuisance in sort of the time that we're in. And, if we keep losing habitat, what is that going to mean? Habitat to the demands of developers, right? I was pretty dismayed to see on the agenda today an oil and gas auction, and really sad that it's signed off on, by wildlife people, by DNR, and I don't blame you necessarily, I'm not trying to get personal, but I think it's indicative of the limitations of the assigned tasks. It's basically check off the box, DNR, check off the box, Eagle, to give these interests what they want. So what do we do about that? One example is that Grayling military expansion, the brakes were put on that from public pressure. The solar arrays that were possible on the 400 acres, that didn't happen because of public pressure, right? The notion of opening more and more of our forested lands to logging, that's going to be stopped hopefully by public pressure. So with habitat connectivity, there's possibilities in that connectivity. There's solutions such as wildlife crossings, right? But it requires evaluating those lives of the ones who would, hopefully not getting hit by cars anymore, but also valuing those lives because they are lives. Thinking about wolves, thinking about coyotes. If the plan is just always to take more and, somehow save the deer or fawns, that's the kind of duty of those predators. That's just what they're up to. So if we could focus on restoring habitat and, rather than having it be kind of like always about killing those kind of dwindling few, how can it be more so a matter of restoring a connectivity, restoring habitat, so there's not those detrimental kind of so-called conflicts. So, we need to make a decision, I think, to value intact habitat, to value other species, value science, and our capacity collectively to learn from the relationships that compose the living earth. And take a stewardship approach that really will allow for our collective resiliency and ideally restoration of all the things that we hold dear while we still can and before it continues to slip away. Pretty much.
Thank you very much. Next for public comment is Monica Sight.
Good afternoon, Director, Commissioners, and Chairman and Commissioners. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm a lifelong resident of Michigan, and I'm here because I'm a stakeholder of wild animals in Michigan. I'm here because the lethal metal gas chambers will be arriving soon to gas our Canada geese. The DNR has rounded up and gassed thousands of Canada geese in our parks and communities, killing entire flocks. But now the federal government will be doing the actual roundup and gassing. The DNR report states that gassing geese is euthanasia, but it's the furthest thing from a quick, easy death as defined by euthanasia. Geese can hold their breath underwater for a long time, and they fly at high altitude. DNR said in news articles that gassing geese is approved by the ADMA. However, the ADMA guidelines do not say that. These are two quotes from the guidelines. Hypoxia is commonly achieved by exposing animals to high concentrations of gases that displace oxygen. In addition, methods based on hypoxia will not be appropriate for species that are tolerant of prolonged periods of hypoxemia. DNR will also be sending our geese to slaughterhouses. Bird flu is explained as the main reason. Where is the concern about spreading bird flu to slaughterhouses of domestic birds? The workers in the trucks go back and forth with crates between wild birds and the domestic birds. Regarding donating to food banks for all the geese that are slaughtered, many food banks won't accept donated wild geese. A lot of them turn them away because they don't have a way to store them. Do the food banks even have the knowledge or extra time it takes to safely cook wild geese? And they only use the breast meat of the adults. The rest is wasted. I'm not a virologist, I'm just a resident, but Michigan has over 450 different bird species and millions of birds. Canada geese aren't the only animals who carry the viruses. So when geese are being rounded up and captured, why aren't hazmat suits or even gloves used when capturing and killing the geese? It's just using scare tactics to make people afraid and compliant. It's possible the geese would survive the flu, but by killing them all, it's preventing natural immunity. In theory, if there's an actual, hear me out. In theory, if there's an actual risk of bird flu spreading, why is bird hunting allowed? Because birds are moved all throughout our state. Geese aren't the main source of water contamination. The DNR, according to the website, doesn't do any testing to confirm the source. It's just assumed. Eagle even has mentioned that the majority of beach closures is due to stormwater runoff from E. coli. And lastly, the DNR admittedly doesn't verify if the complainers have even tried humane solutions. For example, egg addling should be done instead of egg destruction. If eggs are taken away during breeding season, they will just lay more eggs. DNR has successfully used trained border collies to haze geese from nesting in Belle Isle, but it wasn't continued. The success rate was 94% of the geese had left the area in the first 11 minutes. It's very cost effective. And also, these humane methods are a public relations win for the DNR. And copied in my handout is from the DNR website of all the humane methods. So in conclusion, let hunters hunt within reason, do PSAs to tell people not to feed geese, and be more engaged in educating residents on humane methods. Please reverse the NRC change made last October. Please don't gas or send our canopy geese to slaughter. It's not a long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, for public comment is Trish Marie.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. It is afternoon.
It is.
Okay. On my way here from Flint, I saw lots of dead animals along the road. I have this weird habit of tabulating road kill as I drive, so many raccoons and many possums. It's always sad to see them because it seems like such a pointless death. But it's especially sad in the spring because they've made it through the whole winter, which is hard for an animal, hard for a wild animal. And now they're on the cusp of good weather and they get killed. Kind of like how I felt waking up and looking at the snow this morning. So killing coyotes at this time of year in the spring, when they made it through winter and they have the additional stress of trying to raise a family now, it makes no sense. Their coats aren't worth anything. We kill turkeys in the spring, but people eat turkeys, and I don't know anyone or very few people that object to ethical food hunting. So a turkey is a food animal, but nobody I know eats coyotes. we can already deal with problem coyotes. That's already in the legislation. If you have an individual problem animal, you can deal with it. And coyotes aren't like turkeys, which are a natural prey animal, in that they have a culture different from turkeys, where a hen turkey, a female turkey, doesn't wait on her nest for the tom turkey to bring her prey. But a mom coyote does. She's in the den, she's waiting for her mate to bring her and her puppies prey, and if he's killed, she has to do it. And that leaves her puppies vulnerable, and that's that much more stress on her. There's been lots of talk about proper position, proposal G, managing animals via science, which I agree with, but science doesn't tell you what to do. It only tells you what might happen if you do a particular thing. And Einstein said that science divorced from ethics creates monsters. And I agree with Einstein on that. And at the meeting where they instituted this brief quiet period for coyotes before they had to do 10 puppies, it was noted that public perception, social science is also important, especially with hunting rates falling in this state. So to end my comments, please keep the quiet period for coyotes. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Next up for public comment is Karen Stamper.
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Karen Stamper, and I'm here to speak out against the 2025 Canada Goose Roundups and gassing planned for June and in the future. Canada geese provide ecological benefits such as seed dispersal, nutrient enrichment, and serving as prey for predators. Predators of Canada geese and their eggs include coyotes, bobcats, foxes, eagles, crows, ravens, and more. They are known for their lifelong partnerships with pairs staying together for life, symbolizing the value of deep, lasting connections. They are one of the most family-oriented species. With that being said, the method being used, carbon dioxide gassing, is far from humane. Waterfowl like geese are highly tolerant to low oxygen levels in their body tissues. This is known as hypoxia. This means they don't quickly lose consciousness in a CO2 chamber. They suffocate slowly, often while panicking. This is not euthanasia, it's mass asphyxiation. The DNR also claims these killings are about controlling avian flu, yet in 2024, Lake Sherwood in Commerce Township, 108 geese were gassed, and the staff wore no gloves, no mask, no disinfectant on their shoes. If avian flu was a serious concern, those are basic safety failures. So which is it, public health, or is it just convenient justification? And I also want to point out that 44 adults and 64 babies were gassed that day, which makes you wonder if the egg and nest destruction that was supposed to be completed before the roundup was approved was done properly. We will never know if it was or not because the DNR and the USDA do not verify any of this. Also, they're going to be putting these birds in landfills, which gulls and raccoons and other animals are going to go and eat, so if they are infected with the flu, won't they be spreading it as well? Meanwhile, pen-raised pheasants, which also carry disease risk, are being released into the Michigan wild areas. This is a clear contradiction. If birds are a flu risk, why are non-native birds being released into the wild and the native birds are being gassed to death? And why is the state allowing feed stores like Tractor Supply and Rural King to continue to sell ducks and chicks and without proper education, because then people get tired of the ducks and then they put them on the mill ponds and the lakes, and people run them over with their boats because they think they can fly and they can't, or they get frostbitten in the winter. And isn't it DNR itself responsible for the so-called goose problem? In 2008, the department gave a Partners in Conservation Award to Wilbur Joe Johnson, credited with introducing the resident Canada goose to Michigan for hunting purposes. So the state helped create this situation and now treats these birds as a nuisance to be eliminated. That's not wildlife management, and it's more like damage control. I also want to raise serious concerns about the lack of oversight and how the kill permits are issued. Who verifies what communities actually have 100 birds when applying? If there are 50 birds on a lake the day of the roundup, does the USDA let them go? Do they fine the homeowners association for not having 100? Who ensures petitions are signed by 70% of the actual homeowners, not renters, duplicates, or people that were misled in the first place by their HOA? How does the DNR know how many homes are actually on the lake to know what number makes up the 70%? Why does the petition language on the DNR website still say geese may be killed when we all know that on the roundups, at the end of the roundups, they're going to be gassed? Will the new petitions be required, are new petitions going to be required now that the geese are being gassed? And will they be on the same standard, everyone on the same standard form and not multiple choice like Sherwood was, like, you know, how they use theirs? It's all multiple choice and can be manipulated. If this process is flawed from the start, how can communities in this commission trust the lethal management is truly the last resort? There are proven non-lethal alternatives used across the country. Habitat buffers not only deter geese, but help stop fertilizers, pesticides, storm runoff, failing septic systems, and dog feces from entering the lake. Egg-addling use of herding dogs, laser deterrents, the tow and collect machine are all deterrents proven to work if more than one is used at a time. There are communities coexisting with geese without resorting to gassing. Michigan can too. I respectfully urge the NRC to rescind their October 2024 decision to gas geese and investigate this program more closely and hold the DNR accountable, not just for how geese are killed, but for how decisions to kill them were made in the first place. How can an agency gas thousands of geese when they have no science, no Michigan studies, and no environmental impact study, including the USDA? Please take this into consideration before you allow them to gas the geese in June. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next for public comment, Bob Jones.
Good afternoon, Director, Commissioner, Chair, and I would like to welcome Commissioner Humphreys to our first NRC meeting. Say that I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. I would like to say that Michigan Bowhunter supports the wildlife conservation order, including the restoring of the archery doe tag in the open section that's up in the Lake Superior watershed. We believe that it's based on biological science and in the best interest of the resource. There are a few things I'd like to highlight. For the last 10 years, there's been a moratorium on antlerless deer harvest in the Lake Superior watershed. That moratorium has been a biological failure. It has failed to deliver on increasing the deer population, and it has negatively impacted the overall health of the herd in the area. A more balanced sex ratio is paramount in deer management. Having a stretched out rut cycle for 3 months hurts both the bucks and the survivability of the lake-born fawns in the spring. Also, we strongly support the restoration of the year-round coyote season. With the number of apex predators on the landscape, it is also paramount to control and manage those predators that we can to a healthy balance of all species on the landscape. I'd like to address the upcoming amendment on APRs. APRs, we've been debating this for 30 years, and there is no positive biological impact on the herd, and it offers no solution to our current density issues. In fact, the opposite could be said. Enhancing the age structure is believed to increase the spread of disease. I keep hearing a balanced age structure is necessary for the health of the herd. Balanced age structure is not a metric for herd health. Show me any species of mammals that are healthier due to an older population. Is my 90-year-old father healthier than me? No. Am I healthier than my 34-year-old son? No. It just doesn't work that way in the real world. Older populations tend to be less healthy. But our metrics for health of the herd is our herd disease-free? Do we have property densities for the equivalent carrying capacity that we have? Do we have proper sex ratios? With does being bred during the first rut cycle and fawns being born early versus late. Those are metrics required for health. A fawn's health nor genetics change whether they are born from a 6-month-old or a 6-year-old mother or father. That health stays the same. The real reason these are pushed by many, quite honestly, is an obsession with antlers. As hunters, we all have different reasons and ideas about what a good hunting experience looks like and feels like to us. For some, it's harvesting only mature animals at their prime, in their prime. And I respect that choice, I really do. It takes a lot of commitment to do that, a lot of discipline to do that, and I respect those people for those choices. I also wish that they would respect me for my choices and my methods of hunting. As a traditional bow hunter, my opportunities are limited because of the self-limiting that I put on myself with the tool that I use. But for many others, their experience of hunting is about just stepping out of their daily grind, leaving the stress and worries behind for some solitude in the deer stand. They don't care whether they ever shoot a big buck, and many are happy just to harvest a doe and bring some meat home for the freezer that they can share with friends and families. Our regulations need to be supportive of all hunters, regardless of our harvest choices or method choices. Regulating thy neighbor is not sound science and is a sure way to push more hunters out of the woods at a time when we need more hunters, not less. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next for public comment is Marcy Terwilliger.
Yes, I'm Marcy DeWarner, as you know. I've been going over my notes from previous meetings trying to find a reason for the widening chasm between those who view the wild animals as disposable and those who value their ephemeral existence and individual unique character. The following are observations of comments and statements over the wide arc of time I've been attending. They're in no particular order. A familiar name in hunt circles began his comment with a common and false claim of wolves being, quote, undercounted by the DNR, end quote. This and the next claim of declining hunter numbers, blaming the drop-off on wolves, surfaced often. Statements like, quote, wolves are dangerous to kids and dogs, and we don't want them running in town, end quote. And coyotes weren't spared. A speaker boasted of the highly successful killing contest, crowing, we got 236. Another spoke of easily luring a mother away from her pups, all while citing stewardship. And back to wolves. A man said people were saying they need to be armed because they were afraid for their kids. Also said a girl was lost in the woods and people were telling him, quote, wolves could have got her, end quote. Then just recently, another familiar fellow stated, the wolf's population reported by DNR isn't accurate, end quote. Not offering any evidence to counter the research and multi-metrics utilized by the department to arrive at those numbers, insisting, quote, the wolves are eating everything and bears get blamed, end quote. At a meeting near Escanaba, a woman stated she saw a wolf in a field near her house and that she was, quote, afraid for her grandbabies, end quote. We're seeing year after year the repeating theme of our right to hunt and our God-given right to hunt and trap is being taken away from us or limited. It's all about me and my, and it's all so unfair. My point is this, we're at a critical time in our environment and for those with whom we share it. We have the perfect storm convergence in what could be called our new abnormal. Our own government is kneecapping our ability to respond effectively to the next emerging pathogen while shutting down research and firing those experts in all related fields and actively gutting the agencies that protect our precious resources and wild ones, the EPA, NOAA, the Endangered Species Act, even freezing funds for red wolf crossings. I am wary of claims of stewardship and conservation of habitat, only to have armed raiders invade to set traps and snares and just shoot and kill the critters who try to live there. And now on Tuesday, new executive orders coming down from the Ministry of Dumbassery to expedite all permitting for deforestation of our national forests and to remove regulations on and activate polluting coal operations. That inanity, coupled with the unfortunate but apparent exaggerated fear response to the mere sight of a wolf that afflicts a vocal contingent north of the bridge, all of the above tells us now more than ever, this moment calls for a paradigm shift. The selfish demands of too many of us need to be replaced with some serious respect for the lives of our wolves and all our wild ones. A good start would be a reminder, science and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next for public comment is B. Friedlander.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Director Bowen. Welcome to the new Commissioners. I haven't been here for several months, and there are some new faces. Look forward to working with you. I represent Attorneys for Animals. We've been engaged in wildlife policy in this state and have followed the actions of the DNR and NRC over many years. Our comments and testimony unfailingly oppose actions which will result in the death of wildlife. Today, I'm going to speak again in opposition to Amendment Number 4 of 2025. Before I do that, I want to lend my voice and that of Attorneys for Animals to oppose the gassing of Canada geese. And I won't go into detail because it's been covered already by several speakers and will by other speakers. I also want to speak up for the gray wolves. We continue to work to stop the delisting under the Endangered Species Act, while at the same time urging this commission to not authorize a hunt should the delisting occur. Actually, next Wednesday, there will be a hearing in the House Natural Resources Committee on a resolution calling for the delisting. So I think we'll hear more about that issue in the upcoming months. So now I want to turn to the coyotes. We oppose a return to the year-round hunting. The decision made a little over a year ago to shorten the season is supported by science, while the return to year-round hunting is not, but is based on an outdated and narrow view of what science and wildlife policy is. So I'd like to spend the rest of my time and comments on two words. Science is one, and values. Wildlife policy decisions are complex and involve values that broadly reflect the public at large. As a previous speaker said, science does not tell you what to do. It can predict an outcome. It doesn't tell you whether you should shorten the season to hunt or to not hunt. Supporting a shorter season also aligns with the principles of the public trust doctrine, which, as you know, is part of the current DNR Wildlife Division guiding principles and strategies. Values, they play an important but largely unrecognized role in wildlife policy. As said before, science can tell you the facts about a given policy, but cannot tell you whether or not to adopt that policy. So this isn't something new. Values have always been a part of wildlife policy. Take, for example, the decision in 2016 to extend the coyote season to year-round. Science did not dictate that outcome. Science may have provided information on what the population was, how many conflicts there were, et cetera, et cetera. But values drove that outcome. Values such as hunting is the best way to manage populations, and that human inconvenience is more important than not killing wildlife. So I urge you not to limit your considerations to what some people define as science, but to look further. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next for public comment is Thad Dickinson.
Hello, I'm Thad Dickinson from Berkeley. I'm going to talk about science. Thank you for both providing me with this opportunity to speak in opposition to Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment Number 4. I agree that you have an obligation to make a science-based decision in regard to extending the coyote hunting season. So I'm here today to summarize a small sampling of the peer-reviewed studies that speak to the lack of scientific justification for extending the coyote hunting season as an effective strategy to decrease coyote populations and increase that of their prey, most notably white-tailed deer. A 1998 study, Connor et al. Examined the impact of coyote removal on the depredation of sheep. The study found that coyote removal did not significantly reduce the number of sheep killed, and that factors such as the immigration of coyotes from neighboring areas mitigated the effectiveness of the removal strategy. The study found that coyote removal alone is not an effective long-term strategy for controlling depredation. According to the Web of Science database, this study has been cited in 54 peer-reviewed journal articles and 10 dissertations. In a 2024 study, Gantz et al. Investigated how human activity in multiple predator species, including coyotes and human hunters, affect the population dynamics of white-tailed deer. The study found that a balance of natural predator presence and human hunting is necessary to prevent deer overpopulation or collapse. This study was published less than a year ago in June 2024 and has already been cited in 3 peer-reviewed journal articles. The 1995 study, Goodrich and Buskirk, examined the implications of controlling native predator species to protect endangered prey species. The researchers suggest that predator control is a reactive measure and cautioned against over-reliance on lethal methods against predators without addressing the root causes of prey species decline, such as habitat loss. This study has been cited in 88 peer-reviewed journal articles and 13 dissertations. In the 2014 study, Kilgo et al. Examined the impact of coyote removal on the survival of white-tailed deer neonates over a 7-year period. The findings revealed that fawn survival rates fluctuated across the study period, showing that while coyote removal initially had a positive impact on fawn survival, it was not consistently sustained. The study also determined that coyote predation is an additive source of mortality for fawns, as non-predatory mortality rates remained unchanged regardless of coyote removal. The study concludes that coyote control alone is not an effective strategy for enhancing white-tailed deer populations. This study has been cited in 54 peer-reviewed journal articles and 20 dissertations. In a 2017 study, Kierbeck et al. Investigated how coyote populations compensate for high mortality resulting from intensive trapping. The study's findings show that coyotes recover quickly from intensive, indiscriminate trapping from both compensatory reproduction and transient coyote immigration. This study has been cited in 12 peer-reviewed journal articles and 6 dissertations. In a 2017 study, Kilgo et al. Investigated the reproductive characteristics of the coyote population before and after intensive exploitation. And while the study found that exploitation impacted the overall coyote population, it did not drastically alter the reproductive success of individual coyotes. This study has been cited in 19 peer-reviewed journal articles, 7 dissertations. In a 2017 study, Moran and Kelly researched the behavior and movement patterns of coyotes within a heavily exploited population. The study found that the indiscriminate exploitation of coyotes through control measures such as trapping and hunting might not reduce the overall population, and concludes that high levels of mortality in an exploited coyote population may result in immediate colonization by another individual, thwarting efforts to reduce the overall coyote density. This study has been cited in 21 peer-reviewed journal articles and 4 dissertations. Finally, in a 1999 study, Sachs et al. Examined the relationship between coyote territoriality, breeding status, and sheep depredation. The study found that indiscriminate removal of coyotes, such as through trapping or snaring, can disrupt coyote social structures and inadvertently increase depredation by allowing transit, potentially sheep-killing coyotes to move into vacated territory. This study has been cited in 91 peer-reviewed journal articles and 15 dissertations. In sum, these 8 studies, which are but a fraction of the literature, are cited in 339 peer-reviewed journal articles and 78 dissertations. Of course, this science is not new to the Commission, as evidenced by its decision in 2024 to reduce the coyote hunting season to 9 months. To amend that decision in the face of decades of quite literally the best available science on coyote management, and in the absence of an equally robust scientific body of knowledge to the contrary, is not science-based wildlife management, but capitulation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next up for public comment is George Lindquist.
Commissioners, George Lindquist, representing UP Whitetails in the Big Bay Sportsman's Club here. Anyway, I do want to mention there's still over 3 feet of snow in my house. I came down here for spring break. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this order about Angeles auction during archery season. And yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. You know, most anything you read on deer management and all is all based in areas that have growing deer herds where you're trying to control the population, you're trying to keep the deer herd down, and the northern 2/3 of UP has just the opposite problems. It's hard to find information on declining deer herds. We've had a declining deer herd for about 20 years now. And so I looked at the information that was put in along with this order, and there's some definite things I disagree with. And that's why I printed out a couple of pages here from the UP Deer Camp Survey. That's been going on for 20-some years now. I've been doing it myself that long anyway. And what it is, it's made up of individuals and camps across the UP. And, you know, some people say, well, it's not real science, citizen science. We just saw surveys earlier about woodcock. You know, the DNR uses their mail survey and their online survey every year. So, to me, this was put together by DNR biologists years back, and it's solid information. So, I just wanted to show you where, you know, one of the things that's mentioned in this write-up that was included about this, it said there was like an 8 to 1 doe to buck ratio. Well, this shows 3 to 1. And so, you know, this is what's been going on for years. We've been seeing this number. On the second page of this, it goes back 12 years. And opening day, it's been 3 adult does to every adult buck for the last 12 years. To me, that's some pretty solid information. That's not rigged information. That's not something that's just, you know, some people got together. If you look at the top of the page, it shows how many hunters are involved with this. There's a lot. And so, to me, that's some real solid information we should be looking at. The rest of the state wish they had a 3 to 1 buck to doe ratio. So, I just kind of feel like there's people are kind of playing with some of this information, and I think that needs to be looked at. So another part of this too, that information that was given, was they said that there are 8 to 26 deer per square mile in high snowfall zone. You know what? If we had over 20 deer per square mile, I would be here asking for antlerless take. That's not the case. So at the October joint Citizens Advisory Council meeting in the UP. It was the day before the NRC meeting. Some of you were probably there. There were a lot of DNR people, some NRC people. I asked the DNR's head research biologist how many deer per square mile there were in the high snowfall zone, because I knew he was part of that study, the predator prey study. So I asked him, well, what were those numbers? And I'd heard it before from other DNR people. So he told me there were like, in the high snowfall, there were anywhere from 3 to 10 deer per square mile. 3 to 10 deer per square mile. Think about that. You could own 80 acres and not have a single deer on it. And so, they're just not there. And to think that by killing more does is going to help in any way whatsoever, yeah, I mean, I agree that, you know, having this no antlerless take has not moved the needle, but the real problems are habitat, our winter habitat, our predator load. You know, it's not our regulations, it's not our hunting regulations. We're not going to fix our UP deer herd by killing more of our breeders, our brood stock. I talked with deer researcher John Zoga about this, and he said, if you take that doe out of this high snowfall zone, you might as well shoot the fawn too, because the chances of that fawn surviving is 0 to none. So you take it from there. I'll be happy to talk with any of you later. I'll have you to send you the UP Deer Camp survey if you're interested, and that's what I got.
Thank you for your comments. Next for public comment is Brian Reynolds.
Glad to see y'all. Always like seeing you, Becky. It's been a long time.
Yes.
So, this doe issue just doesn't seem to want to go away. Our deer population is on a steady downward trend, and there's some stuff in some of these articles that you were giving, papers you were given about the wildlife management, the North American Model of Wildlife Management. And if you read in there, it tells you that if you've got a population that's on its downward slide, you want to increase the population to protect the females. If you have a population that's going up and you want to take more deer out of the herd, you kill the females. Well, our population is not on a steady rise up, I can tell you that. Now, it is going to take a little bit of a rise this year because we had such an easy winter last year. We started out with the easy winter this year, but we've had more winter in the last 3 or 4 weeks than we had all winter. So we'll have to wait and see what effect it has on the deer. I don't think that shooting antlerless deer and taking more deer off the landscape is going to help with any of the issues that these guys say that it's going to take care of. It's going to give us less deer on the landscape. Maybe the buck-to-doe ratio will get better, but a 3-to-1 buck-to-doe ratio of wild deer herd is excellent. And I'm not saying that there aren't places in the UP. I know now, I talked to guys in Menominee County, and they're seeing probably 15, 20 antlerless deer per buck. But in the vast majority of the UP, the buck-doe ratio is not that bad. Now, there are some places up in Baraga County, they say that they have a lot of antlerless deer, and the buck-to-doe ratio is all out of whack. Well, I think the DNR needs to maybe look at some of these deer management units and change some of them so that hunters could take deer out of those areas where they need them. There's a couple other places too. Now, I talked to Chad last summer and I talked to Sarah last month, and they said they're open to looking at this and maybe changing things, but these sportsmen have to take the initiative to go and talk to their local biologist and talk to him about it first and come up with some boundaries and some other things, and then bring it to the Wildlife Division, and then the Wildlife Division would bring it to you. But as far as I know, nobody's done that so far. I don't know what they're waiting for. If they really wanted to do this, they should be moving on that. Not waiting until here we are in April, it's kind of getting late in the season to be able to change the deer management unit for the fall. You never get it in the booklet, so I don't see that happening. Like I said, there's a lot of science. We've got some retired biologists, deer researcher John Mazoga, Jim Hamill, retired biologist in the UP, Bob Decker, and those people all have a lot to do with deer in the UP. And they all say the same thing. We should not be shooting antlerless deer in a high snowfall zone. And I gotta tell you, there's places that there's deer deserts up in the UP and in a high snowfall zone in some places. You go to northern Moose County, there's not very many deer. You go into Elder County, there's not very many deer. You go into northern Schoolcraft County, there's not very many deer. Marquette County, the guys up at Baraga, they have a problem up there and they should be able to take care of it. That's just one small spot in the northern UP. So they need to come to you and try to change some of these deer management units, and we need to be more willing to do that. If there's a problem, let's fix it. But shooting all the antlerless deer, putting them out on a tag is not sound science. It's not. And you can't treat the UP, the tip of the Keweenaw, to the southern tip of Menominee County the same because it's so diverse. And the deer population is so diverse in there. So I ask you to really look at this hard before you make any of those decisions. And the last thing I will say is, as far as I know, none of the local biologists in the UP have been asked what their recommendations are when it comes to shooting antlerless deer in the northern UP. And I would think that should be one of the first things that was done before this was even attempted to be brought to UP. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next for public comment is Mike Taylor.
I shouldn't have let Brian read my report. Commissioners, Director, thanks for having me today. I'm glad to see we have a couple of new commissioners on the line with us. I'm here today representing UP Whitetails of Marquette County, the Eastern Dickinson Sportsman's Club, the Big Bay Sportsman's Club, and the Upper Peninsula Sportsman Alliance. Dave couldn't be here today, and I hope you all got his letter, and I hope you got mine that I dropped off earlier in the day. And, you know, Dave and I talk quite a bit. And it's, you know, we talk about different things. We're talking about fisheries and you know, turkeys. We're both turkey advocates. I mean, you know, deer is my passion, but I love the turkey hunt. And I'm a fisherman. I'm an all-around sportsman. But one thing that really is my passion is deer. So let's talk deer predation first. The Upper Peninsula has an abundance of coyotes, wolves, bears, bobcats, and now cougars. As a member of the DMI, we were given a lot of information by the DNR. Through this research, we were able to crunch a lot of numbers that they had given us. We were able to do some math calculations and came up with some astonishing numbers. It is estimated that predators take in the UP between 95 and 100,000 deer a year. 95 to 100,000 deer per year. You know, these calculations were all, or these numbers were all given to us by the DNR and all the presentations that we had during the DMI. And that didn't include the 24 increase in wolf populations that we got. With the declining deer herd that we have to add in the human factor. And that includes our deer seasons, which start in September and end in December. Vehicle accidents, and the most important thing is old man winter. We don't know what's going to happen. There are several other issues I have to address here on behalf of the groups that I am representing here today. First is the fact that the UP Deer Advisory Team had 2 members that were not from the Upper Peninsula. Second was I was the UPDAT Vice Chair, and why was I and other members were not included in all the conversations and issues concerning the UPDAT by phone or by email. The DNR report given to us today states that there were 8 groups that were in favor of shooting does with the bow in the mid to high fall zones in the UP. I know how many members there are in the UPW chapter in Baraga. However, the other groups are very suspect as to how many members they actually have in the UP. How many members do they have in the UP? On March 8th of this year, UP Whitetail Central Committee met in Escanaba. All 6 chapters were represented. We represent, Delta County has about 650, Marquette County 550, Alger 400, Schoolcraft 350 members, Menominee River 500, and Baraga 350. There were 2 issues that we voted on. Number 1 was not to shoot does in the upper snowfall zones. Only Baraga said no to that. The other one was to work with the DNR to see if we couldn't set up some DMUs in the UP that we could shoot does, even in the high snowfall zones. And that passed overwhelmingly 6-0. The Upper Peninsula Sportsman's Alliance has strongly opposed taking of does in the mid to high snowfall zone areas for some years. UPSA has 62 clubs. We have 62 clubs. And that represents a hell of a lot of people, and they care about our natural resources. There is no science that suggests that shooting of does in the mid to high snowfall zones with a declining deer herd would be beneficial to our deer. Only the opposite. Minnesota and Wisconsin have bucks only in the high snowfall areas in their states. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next for public comment is Mitchell Nelson.
Good afternoon, Chair Kildee, Director Bowen, Commissioners. Welcome back, Commissioner Humphreys. I look forward to working with you. And thank you to the MUCC for streaming this as always. We really appreciate it. My name is Mitchell Nelson, the Michigan State Director for Humane World for Animals. And before I jump into this here, I just have to say, you know, it's funny, our side of this debate on the coyote issue and so many other things is often characterized as emotional, that's where our arguments are coming from. That's not what I've heard here today. And frankly, that's never what you're going to find in the written statements that we submit to this commission every meeting, every month. And, you know, we can look through the 8 pages that we submitted here today, and I would ask anyone here to take a look and find any space we're wasting, waxing poetic about the evils of hunting. We're not doing that. You know, anywhere where we're making claims or assertions that aren't backed by thoroughly vetted sources. That's what we're doing. And yes, we're driven by values and ethics that I would argue are shared by a lot of hunters in Michigan and a lot of Michiganders. But you better believe that we lead with science, evidence, facts, common sense. There we go. As I mentioned in the last NRC meeting, prior to 2016, Michigan's coyote hunting season was open from July 15th to April 15th and was one of the longest coyote seasons in the U.S. There was ample opportunity to hunt coyotes during that time without limits, and landowners could remove problem coyotes at any time. However, in late 2015, Those who wanted to hunt even more coyotes convinced the DNR to issue a wildlife conservation order creating a year-round coyote season in Michigan. Proponents of that change presented no scientific evidence to back up their claims that a year-round season was necessary. In a presentation to the NRC on September 10, 2015, a DNR fur bearer specialist noted that there was no indication that killing more coyotes will result in the desired goal of increasing the deer population, and it was not likely to have a large-scale impact on coyote populations. He proposed that, quote, typically over the long term and large scale, habitat management efforts are more effective and economically viable than predator control when managing deer and other prey species, unquote. That sentiment is widely echoed among wildlife management professionals and hunting groups across the country. For example, the Pennsylvania Game Commission has stated, quote, after decades of using predator control, such as paying bounties with no effect, and the emergence of wildlife management as a science, the agency finally accepted the reality that predator control does not work, unquote. The agency added that, quote, predators don't compete with our hunters for game. The limiting factor is habitat. We must focus our efforts on habitat. Now, we know that the killing of coyotes during late spring greatly increases the chance of dependent pups being orphaned, leading to their slow death from starvation. Litters of pups born in the spring in Michigan are still dependent on both parents until weaning and remain under the care and guidance of their parents as they learn to hunt and become independent. But we and other groups also provided to this commission a list of research studies and government statistics showing that killing more coyotes will not increase numbers of deer, will not prevent livestock conflicts, and will not decrease coyote numbers. In fact, the best available science finds that killing more coyotes is counterproductive because increased hunting disrupts their social structure, which encourages more breeding, more migration, and in the end results in more coyotes. So you have our written statement with all the detailed information and citations to the science on this topic. I'll just conclude by reiterating that the NRC's 2016 decision to open coyote hunting to year-round was not backed by science and was not done to achieve any wildlife management objective. It was done only to appease demands by a small minority to kill more coyotes. You guys made the right call last year. We're just asking that you stick with it. We're asking for the status quo. That's it. So we ask you to uphold this commission's March 14, 2024 decision to approve Item 6 Coyote Hunting Season Length and Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment 1 of 2024 because that decision was supported by the best available science and reflects the values and ethics and most importantly the common sense of the people of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next for public comment is Elliot Hubbard.
Commissioners, Mr. Gilby, it's been 2 years, but good to see you.
I remember, yeah. Well, I'll leave the mic.
Better?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, here I am again, and most of us talking about deer and the deer problem that we have in the Lower Peninsula. We got a no density issue. Half of it's because hunters don't want to pull the trigger, and the other half is solely on you guys. You guys make the regulations that help or hurt. But 2/3 of the UP, that's not the case. The deer issue is primarily NRC related. Over a decade ago, Joe with Bow was banned. It hasn't changed anything with the overall densities. The only thing that's changed is the age structure of our antlerless deer and sex ratio imbalance in places. It's kind of pushed that there's not enough deer and we can't shoot deer up there because, high predation, which there is high predation, but if we haven't changed the needle on our deer herd density up there and numbers aren't climbing, a lot of it has to do with poor DWC habitat that can't sustain it. We went from 122 DWCs to 36 with only 6 being ample food and shelter. That's basic biology 101. The habitat can't sustain a large deer. And until you change that, the number's never going to climb. Chad and our biologists have repeatedly asked over the year to change. The NRC has not done so. Why should I pay more in tags? Because we're in a budget situation, you want me to pay for more, when we're not even listening to our own biologists. We're not listening to the people who are employed to make these decisions. Instead, we're listening to the stakeholder leaders
retired foresters. I mean, at this point, we might as well get rid of all of our biologists if we're only gonna listen to the stakeholders. We need to get back to managing our deer and not managing for hunter opportunity or hunter needs. We're in an issue because of lack of management. June DMI meeting, I was there. July meeting, I was here. To watch the debacle that we seen with the DMI was egregious. At one point, the commissioner even stood up and looked, is that what you want? Well, it should have been pretty easy with a 10-hour ride from the UP with a stakeholder leader to have it right, but thank God we had Brooke, and thank God we had Chad, thank God we had Sarah to keep it on the rails, because it was an ugly mess. It was an embarrassment to our stakeholders as hunters, our trappers, our fisher, an absolute embarrassment to the DNR that poured their heart and soul into this. It was a waste of time. And here we are again, facing the same situation. We have UPDAT, the LPDAT, and here again, politics are playing havoc on our management. The UPDAT team came up with a resolution, and the same people that had a problem with it, that derailed everything and turned last year's DMI into a debacle, is doing the exact same thing. In the DMI process, I got to learn a lot through my wife, because my wife was on the lower. 2 biologists from Wisconsin last year even flat out said that warehousing does long-term is detrimental. We did what we did for the sake of doing something to make the masses happy, even though on a long-term side of it, there was negative consequences. I'm going to read a couple quotes that I had with Mike Tonkovich from Ohio. He's their head biologist down there. In many places, we have moved from managing deer to making sure that our hunters have a memorable hunting experience regardless of the cost. If you want to make differences, ask your agency to let Chad tell parts 2 and 3 and 4 of the story that he started. If they don't hear you, ask again, and have all your friends ask. I believe most deer hunters care and want to know what the future holds, and I believe most agencies want to do the right thing. Ask them to make the difficult, uncomfortable, outside-the-box changes that will have meaningful impact on the harvest and the herd, and stop with regulations that have no impact. We all know what they are. You don't need any more of anything, no more days, no more seasons, no more implement choices, no more catering. What you need is more folks like yourself that are willing to ask, willing to listen, and I believe willing to make sacrifices to correct things. It is time for us to manage for quality and biology. Start listening to our biologists. We did that with our turkeys. We have one of the probably best turkey, I would say world-class trophy, or world-class turkey hunting in the nation, because we listen to the biologists and manage their turkeys to what they are today. There are people like myself and others out here that are willing to do the work and willing to make the sacrifices, but we need your guys' help. For me in the lower, and a couple of the farmers that are here, we can't do enough on our own. We need you guys to help us manage. And in the UP, it's no different. They need your help to manage the deer the right way, listening to the biologists that have a lot more education in all of this than any of us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, public comment. Rochelle Hubbard.
Yeah, one half, I get the other half.
All right.
Hello, Commissioners, Chairman, Director. I haven't spoken to you all since last year, and I would like to welcome some of the new commissioners. I'm happy to see some new faces, and I look forward to what new perspectives will bring. I will start out by saying that we are all stewards of fur, feather, fin, and fang. And stewardship requires action. If we don't take action to correct imbalances, nature will. Nature is not kind, nor swift, nor humane. Hunters have been part of the natural world since before recorded time. To deny that hunters and natural order are not intertwined is to deny natural order itself. We are stewards because we have the intelligence and the perception to see problems in the natural world and make changes to resolve them. This includes adjusting regulatory structure to guide hunters to manage and balance the resources. I was raised in a family that didn't hunt, but my family respected hunting as a critical management tool to maintain balance in the natural world. We believed that there was room for the enjoyment of the hunter along with the goal of management and conservation of the wildlife they pursued. Whether they were game animals in overabundance that fed families, or predators that needed to stay within manageable numbers to reduce conflict and stay within their own carrying capacity. Later, as an adult, I became a hunter and was very well aware of the impact of my harvest choices during each season and all the days in between. I am here today as a member of the hunting public that has watched for a decade as people keep asking for someone to do something. And year after year, the decision to do something that will shift management, gets pushed to be next year's problem, and the next, and so on. Sure, the easy options get added, add on more season, add on more tags, add on longer seasons, add on more ways to take deer, and the harvest ratios continue to get more out of balance as hunters target more bucks instead of does. More out of balance with the habitat, out of balance with the buck-to-doe ratios, out of balance with breeding and fawning cycles, winter mortality, and health of the deer herd today and long-term health of the species. All the tough decisions needed more discussion and more input before we could consider them. We needed more data, was what was said. We have all the data that we need to prove that continuing to do what we have been doing is not giving us the resource management results that we need. Status quo is not an option any longer. 10 years ago, we had the data that showed there were issues with the balance of the deer herd at the state level deer management and with the quality of hunting experience in order to keep and recruit hunters. It has only continued to get worse. The management model of more deer is better bore fruit back in the late 80s and early 90s, and it is long past time for a new model that puts the health and balance of the resource first. To take an active role in the stewardship of our deer herd. Before you today and over the course of the next month, you will have deer regulations to consider for 2025, with more to come next year. But someone that must do something begins and ends with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, for public comment is John Krakowski.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm John Krakowski. I live in Autumnway in the UP. I am on the Upper Peninsula Deer Advisory Team as a representative of Michigan Bowhunter. As we went through the process, the one thing that became quite apparent it was going to be about was to restore antlerless harvest across the whole UP with archery equipment. As I look at that, the limited impact of archery season would be the best way to address this. It's not going to be a large impact as it would be with rifle hunting. I feel that would be our best baby step into that. As we go through this, I've listened to a few other things that have happened, and with consultation with Dr. Gary Roloff from MSU, he's of the opinion that through the mid-snowfall zone, that we are at capacity now. And 100% of the deer move into 10% of the UP in the winter. That 10% of the land is what determines capacity. That is our carrying capacity. Of course, we do have predators. I'm not saying they're not an issue, but it should not take away the ability of us to have a deer. In the UPDAT, we voted to pass this with a majority. I believe it's going to be positive for us. And what I always speak to when it comes to predators in the UP is be thankful that we can live and hunt in a place that's wild enough to sustain that animal, any of them, any of the predators. And as far as I know there was concern regarding killing a doe, he might as well kill the fawn too, because the fawn is dead. Again, consultation with Dr. Roloff, what I found was, it's deer, what he found in studies was there's kin support. Deer don't forget how to be a deer just because their mother's gone. There's other deer around. They will follow those deer and go to the yards. And in the high snowfall zone, most of those deer where they're going to yard is going to be in the mid snowfall zone. And if we're already at capacity there, as they move back north, if they are orphan fawns, some of the other studies from Dr. Tim Van Deelen from the University of Wisconsin, he spoke to actually have a better chance of that deer being an orphan to reach 2 years old. So mostly what I'm getting at is I think this has been vetted, it's been supported by wildlife division biologists. I think it's a great thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next for public comment is Jordan Hoover.
Chairman, Director, Commissioners, wondered if quickly I might be afforded a point of personal privilege to address something that came up prior to lunch. Very quick.
I mean, it's your time to use for whatever purpose you want to do.
Very good. So earlier during the meeting, the issue or concern was raised that commissioners were perceived to be excluded from contact or participation with the Upper Peninsula Deer Advisory Group. I'm the chair, and I communicate regularly with Chad and Sarah. And to my knowledge, that is simply not the case. At no point have the commissioners been boxed out, if you will. And I would think if any commissioner wished to participate, that opportunity would be afforded.
Mr. Chairman? I'm going to discourage debate, but if there's a clarifying point.
I just want to point out that the department did record those sessions.
So I guess we'll get into it. So the issue of go with the flow, as it's called, is quite polarized. But quite frankly, it's very simple. There's a biological argument, and then there's an emotional argument. And I believe that the commission absolutely knows what the right thing to do is. There's been a lot of social and political pressure on this issue. And it has to stop, because the only thing that suffers is the resource. You know, it's pointed out that our winter habitat is in dire straits. Ultimately, our winter habitat determines carrying capacity. And I don't care how many does you save, you're only going to fit so many does in that winter complex, and they're going to starve to death, or they're going to get picked off by predators because they're weak, because they don't have enough food. Malnutrition becomes a serious issue. I personally would rather see UP families have an opportunity to have venison on their table than feed a wolf. And those are the only two choices. Moving on, as I said, the science is very clear. And we need to look no further than the fact that prior to 2015, we have 50 years of precedent where the archery doe tag was intact. And that includes following the record-setting winters of 96, 97. We had snow up past the telephone poles, and we still harvested antlerless deer with a bow. That being said, there was no biological imperative to do what was done in 2015. There was a panic. What do? We got to do something. Let's be seen doing something. Well, we did the wrong thing. Now we need to correct our error. I've been having this fight for 10 years. I understand that there's some very vocal opponents of this, but they are not the majority they lead you to believe. It is a very small handful of people. There's support from sportsmen's clubs, there's support from rank and file hunters, there's support from within the department as they brought this recommendation forward before. There's legislative support. There was support last year in the UPDMI. There's support again this year in the UPDAT. And as the chairman, I have to go back to my team and I have to say, our input mattered. They heard us. They listened. And after the DMI last year, my team was really reluctant to come back to the table and believe that what we're doing matters. Because we didn't get heard last year. Nobody feels that way. And we're very hopeful that that can change. And the commission has an opportunity to demonstrate to everybody that they do listen. They do follow the science. That this isn't a rogue bureaucracy that's just out destroying our way of life. This is a tremendous opportunity. There are 4 generations of archers in my family. My 9-year-old son. Some of the gentlemen that spoke today have had many years. They're in their 60s, maybe early 70s. What about my son? What about the future? And I can tell you, if we don't change, he will never know the UP that I grew up in. Lastly, it's time for change. There's a wonderful crop of new UP leaders that are assuming position and responsibility, and they are eager to be active stewards and to engage. And at some point, the past has to be vanquished and bold decisions have to be made for the future. And I would encourage the commission to do that, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, would you like to introduce who you're with?
Yes, Commissioner, I would. This is my son, Lincoln Hoover. Would you like to say hello? This is Commissioner Walters. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Thank you. Next, for public comment, Justin Tomei.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Director, Counselor. You always get left out, so I would try and say hi. My name is Justin Tomei, representing Michigan United Conservation Clubs. My plan changed a little bit when Brooke asked me what I was going to talk about today. She said, deer or coyotes? I said, yes. So I want to start with coyotes, but I want to start by painting a picture of a very real thing that the UP in particular is already going through. Currently, the DNR estimate 762 wolves for a minimum winter population. The number required for federal delisting was 100, state delisting 200. We've blown by that decades ago. And the primary management tool for wolves over the past 20 years has been litigation. And I think all of you would agree, whether or not you think we should be hunting and trapping wolves, which we absolutely should be, is that that form of management via litigation is toxic and counterproductive to the goals of what we're trying to accomplish in the UP and across Michigan. So the idea that we should wait for a court to intervene on the coyote issue, it's toxic and counterproductive. You guys have the opportunity today to follow your legal charge and conservation responsibility and follow Proposal G as twice voted on by the voters of Michigan in 1996 and 2014 with the Scientific Fish and Wildlife Management Conservation Act. And do the right thing. Don't leave hunters in limbo. Don't sacrifice another coyote season. We can do it right. We can do it right today and be done with it. So I'm going to move on to deer now because we have kind of got lost with the independence and liberty hunts. At our March convention, our membership voted to support restoring antlered opportunity to the liberty and independence hunts. It surpassed the 2/3 majority required for passage by our internal rules. And I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the reasons that they thought that we should be allowing those children and disabled and veteran hunters to harvest bucks. As Commissioner Walters already alluded to, it is a very small amount of harvest, a couple percent of the total deer harvest that is taken during those hunts. It is also less than 1% of the total effort for deer hunters in the state of Michigan. So again, it's a very small amount of effort, a very small amount of harvest. similar to the coyotes, really, when this was passed last year, there wasn't a ton of objective data that was used to make this decision. One of the things that I asked Chad Stewart in the deer advisory team meetings was whether or not another state had tried this, whether or not there was any literature on this, whether or not any state ever even had an antlered opportunity. And the answer that I got was no. We couldn't find anybody that had made the switch before to show any results that happened from it, saying, you know, antlerless harvest increased, or we increased recruitment, or we didn't lose recruitment. And to my knowledge, there's no literature on this issue either. I shot my first deer during the inaugural youth hunt way back in 2001. It was a little teeny tiny 4-point Bel Air. It's a story I still tell today with my dad, from not getting a shot on a giant buck I saw on the Saturday, and then shooting that little 4-point in the rain while my dad was throwing up over the stand from his heartburn issues. You know, and this little buck walks out and I get him, and I didn't even know it was a buck at the time. My dad looks at me and he goes, "You know that was a buck?" And I had no idea. And that deer's hanging on my wall. I was actually going to bring it in today, but I forgot to grab it. And, you know, I have a 6-year-old. This year is probably the first year we're going to take her out. I want her to be able to tell those similar stories. You know, I understand the value of taking antlerless deer. My daughter saw 5 of them hanging in our garage this year. And if a doe walks out during the youth hunt, that's what we're going to take. But she shouldn't be denied the opportunity unless we have a really good reason to do so. You know, I helped craft the deer advisory team, the Lower Peninsula's message about destigmatizing antlerless harvest, and it is a worthy goal because there are parts of the state where we increase our antlerless harvest. Not everywhere, and that's an important distinction too. And I think that we can do this in other ways. I'm not claiming to have the solution here today, but it is something that the Lower Peninsula team at least wants to keep on our agenda going forward. So I mean, that's really all I have for you today. I would just encourage you to restore this antlered opportunity. There's certainly very healthy debates we can have on the merits of it going forward, but for now, until we have something to fall back on as an objective reason why we need to do this, I think there are other opportunities, you know, to teach the next generation that when antlerless harvest is necessary, that is something we should do. So, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next for public comment is Keith Schaefer.
Commissioners, Chair, Director, good to see you guys again. Thorne would like to send his regards. He's getting ready for his banquet, so he didn't make it here today. Here today to speak on behalf of all the Highland hunters and all the dog organizations. What I had here was pretty rough, right? Luckily, that wasn't from Michigan this time, that came from Maine. But it's the same as the one that floated down a couple years ago in Michigan. We can't control, right? We can't control what other people do. We can only control what we do. And one of the things we can't control is the opportunity to limit this from happening. It's important that we maintain the support from the 80% in the middle of the non-hunters. It's really important to us in the state. And things like this degrade that horribly. That was a Facebook thing. So I really would appreciate if we could stay the course, at least in the next cycle. Let's get this through and see what happens. By then we should have some good science behind everything and we'll know where we are. Secondly, I really appreciate your support on being able to take 2 more dogs in the woods on a leash, and then bring them on a leash during our training season. Right now we have 8 dogs in your own, but to take 2 more in the tree would be great. Young dogs, something like that. That's it again, right time. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. See ya.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next is Merle Jones and Shane Hammond together. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Director, Council, and
Welcome aboard, Commissioner Humphrey. I apologize, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself this morning, but I did meet Carol the other day. Fantastic conversation. She's fun to say hi. Sorry, I'm a little unprepared. I usually come up here with a whole lot of stuff, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of out. So I do want to hit on a couple things. One is I believe y'all should have an email from me that covers quite a bit of the information. Ironically, the only reply back I got from that was Commissioner Nyberg. But in that email, it does speak to the concept of nuisance hunting and the myth about that far too many people seem to misunderstand, and I don't have time to explain that right now, so I want to comment on a couple other things. The emotional rhetoric we keep hearing is not how we make our decisions. Emotional rhetoric is not how we make our decisions. I would like to ask if anybody here in this commission has ever heard the term autogenic compensatory reproduction. Ring a bell with anybody? Yeah, didn't think so. That term's been floating around for about 10 years now. One of the leading preservationists in this country has been selling that idea, and the concept that coyotes reproduce in a compensatory fashion, meaning they will reproduce more or less, and they do it based upon their auditory communications, meaning they howl to each other, and somehow through those howls, they know that they need to have more babies. There's absolutely no validation to this whatsoever. The concept is quite absurd, actually, if you really dig into the research and look for the science. And trust me, I have. What I have found, following that train of information, is the entirety of that information is reproduced, republished, and propagated by the same group of people to the point where it is now actually considered real science. There's people believing it. And we support that when we enable them. We have to stop enabling them. That's all I got. Other than that, everything Justin told me said in spades. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Caught me way off guard.
Okay, we now move to the 3-minute comment period. We have the cards. Here we are. First up is Joyce Janicki. Janicki? Janicki.
Everybody still awake? Everybody hear me? Okay. First, I would like to go on record as opposing the gassing of Canada geese, the rounding up, the separation of families, and the stuffing into carbon dioxide chambers, the entire nightmare experience from beginning to end is so unjust and really unspeakably cruel. And with all due respect, it appears that the DNR is actively manipulating public opinion by stating that this gassing process is euthanasia, but euthanasia means a good death. This is not. And B, that it is deemed humane by the American Veterinary Medical Association. Seems you're counting on the fact that the word veterinary will convince folks that gassing geese is humane. Most people don't realize that the AVMA condones excruciatingly cruel methods for the mass killing of animals, such as 1, ventilation shutdown plus, which slowly suffocates and bakes hens and pigs to death. Number 2, they also condone the spreading of a deadly foam,
which miserably suffocates pigs and cattle. And number 3, they condone the bludgeoning deaths of piglets. Of course, the public will want to believe that a veterinarian association must have the best interest of animals in mind, but we know better, don't we? As for coyotes, I stand with the shortened season as approved by the majority of you last year. Why? Because it makes incredible sense. Hunting is officially paused April 16th through July 7th. Why would you not give coyotes the same just consideration that you give to other wild animals raising their young? And wildlife doesn't exist in a vacuum. The DNR has always taken into account social as well as biological and economic considerations in all DNR orders. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Next, for 3-minute comments is Ann Honhart. If I got that right? Honhart.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The first issue I'd like to discuss is about the reducing of the quiet period for denning coyotes. I strongly oppose reducing the quiet period from mid-April to mid-July that NRC approved in March of 2024. My brothers and father, who were avid ethical hunters here in Michigan and elsewhere, always spoke of fair chase and practiced it. Killing coyotes when they're young are in their dens and would die a slow death is not fair chase. It is the least that hunters can do is to give coyotes a break while they're taking care of their young. Your commission did the right thing by allowing this quiet period for coyote uprearing, and I urge you to please maintain. Secondly, is regarding the gassing of Canada geese. My brother John lived on Mesa Bay Lake in water for over 20 years, and we as our family delighted to see the Canada geese, the newt swans, and the ducks float by. There were no birds fighting for turf or scaring us off. When they were on their nests, we knew to avoid them to stay away. And at our plant on Stevenson Highway in Troy, Canada geese paraded up and down the street, nesting on their factory roof, and also along the truck route. We were fascinated to see them take their young in tow, and even the cars and trucks on Stevenson Highway stopped to give the goose parade time to safely cross. Yes, there were goose droppings on the sidewalks, but they were swept away. The droppings fertilized our lawns, and the geese ate our fallen apples, which would otherwise have rotting and attracted hornets. We accepted their presence along with poop. Although I helped collect Canada geese eggs with the DNR and Humane Society, gassing geese is going too far. In 2016, Michigan Animal Control facilities ceased gassing dogs and cats, realizing how inhumane and cruel this was to animals. Why would we be so aggressive to now gas Canada geese? No living creature should be gassed, nor should we be rounding up Canada geese and exterminating them. There are other non-lethal methods which we have heard today and read about to remove these awful practices. And heck, there is a legitimate reason not to hunt coyotes year-round. Coyotes can be curbing the goose population, and eminently, there is the option of living side by side with them. I strongly oppose this gassing proposal as the final solution, and ask you to please halt any plans for gassing of cannabis. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next, for 3-minute comments is Tom Kogar.
Hello, my name is Tom Kogar, and I just want to thank you all for listening to all of our comments today. I'm here to talk about the Canadian geese. The American Veterinary Medical Association does approve the gassing as a form of euthanasia, but for more context, they also say, and I quote from their website, The overriding commitment of these guidelines is to provide veterinarians guidance in relieving pain and suffering of animals who are going to be euthanized. The recommendations in the guidelines are intended to guide veterinarians who must then use professional judgment in applying them to the various settings where animals are to be euthanized. Canadian geese, they're not diving animals, but they can hold their breath for extended periods. And this is why an inhaled agent such as carbon monoxide is not a quick or humane way to kill Canadian geese. The AVMA goes on to say it will not be appropriate for species that are tolerant of prolonged periods of hypoxemia, and that a non-inhaled method of euthanasia should be considered for these species. Furthermore, out of the over 4,000 humane societies that euthanize animals, guess how many currently use the gas chamber? Two. 2 out of over 4,000 use gas chambers to euthanize pets, because the overwhelming evidence is clear that gas is not a humane way to end an animal's life. Even though most people think and feel differently about the Canadian geese, they have the same ability to feel pain and suffer as our dogs and cats. Hunting is a more humane option than terrifying these geese by confusing them, corralling them, loading them into crates, driving them, and then gassing them, which could cause an extended period of suffering. In my final minute, I'll just share a quick observation that I'd say is a lifetime of observations of me living by a golf course, homes by lakes. People are fine with a small number of geese. The issue begins when mom and dad geese they hatch their young, and the 2 geese now become a family of 10. Let's say there's 5 pairs of geese on a golf course or condo complex. These 5 pairs of geese can quickly turn into 100 geese. And after a short grace period when they're young, the complaints begin. And this is really an issue with most people, that there's so many geese all of a sudden. That's why I feel like over time, removing or boiling some of the eggs or all of the eggs could have a real impact about getting rid of the geese. And my final sentence, I know egg removal and oiling is a current issue or a current reality, but it's not really given the time and energy it needs. So I hope we can do the removing of the eggs and adjusting the hunt limits so we can take gassing off the table. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, for a 3-minute comment, is Paul North.
Thank you for hearing me. My first time at something like this, mine's a little different. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that had anything to do with the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. It's been a godsend for me and my puppy and some of my 74 and 5-year-old buddies that went out and got new dogs. We are having an absolute riot. And I hope that you'll continue doing it for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Next, for a 3-minute public comment, is Mike Birch.
Good morning, good afternoon now. My name is Mike Birch. I live in southwest Saginaw County near the Saginaw Branch State Dean area. This is the third meeting I've attended here in the last 10 months or so. And it's always been talked about the deer population in my area. It's absolutely exploded in the last 6 or 8 years. And in spite of our best efforts utilizing summer cropping permits and taking numerous deer, unprecedented numbers, we've been unable to get that under control. And we have more deer now than we ever had. That's in spite of shooting hundreds of deer in the last few years. So I appreciate and I would recommend the The changes that are coming to our summer crop damage permits will make it easier for us to get additional deer off our fields in the summertime. I think they need to be adopted, and I hope you do so. I don't think it needs to stop there. I think there's other things that could be done as well to make it easier for us to keep the deer under control there. Second thing, the proposal for the youth hunt. I strongly encourage you to adopt that and allow the kids to go back and shoot a buck. I can say from personal experience teaching my kids to hunt, and when they go to school and they post online and they brag to their buddies about shooting a buck, whether it's big or small, I've had many of their friends come out and ask, can they go hunting on the farmer's farm? And I've taken them. So it does encourage hunting. I think I know there's been lifelong hunters that started out at my place. And I think that's a good thing. So please consider that going forward. Last thing I have is, I've been told by different biologists, we have nearly 1 million excess deer in Michigan right now. That's using our current rules and regulations and summer crop damage permits going forward. And I'd ask you to consider how many deer we can have in Michigan, how many excess deer we can have in 3 years, or in 5 years, or in 10 years. Something drastic needs to change, and doing the same old thing year after year, tweaking the rules a little bit, I don't think it's going to get the job done to address that. Not just to stop the growth of the deer herd, but get it back to where it needs to be. Chad Peter was told us we need to shoot 35 or 40% of the deer just to maintain the current level. If you have that many excess deer in Michigan, we aren't coming close. So what's next? What rule changes are you going to put in place in the next few years? So we're not looking at 2 million excess deer in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next for public comment is Mel Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Mel Smith. I'm part of the Let 'em Grow group. We've been pushing for 15 years to try to get antler point restrictions through the NRC and have continually failed each time. Most of you commissioners were not around here a couple of years ago when we suggested a CWD APR study. So the DNR put that together and worked it in 5 counties. They gave us a goal of antlerless deer to harvest, and if we didn't meet that, they were going to stop the study. In each year, we went above and beyond that to increase the antlerless harvest, and that was in Montcalm County, Mecosta, and Ionia. Each county exceeded the goal that DNR set. The antlerless harvest was increased, and subsequently, when the survey was completed, it was reported out that the APRs did nothing to help with CWD. Well, after they took them away, you look at the harvest of antlerless in those counties, you'll find the bottom dropped out. We dropped from a high down to like 68th in the state for harvesting antlerless deer. I've been hunting for 54 years and buying licenses, so I grew up when it was brown, it's down, and I'm appreciative to have APRs implemented in a couple of the counties, but we need to get them across the state. In the lower peninsula, I'd like to see 4 on the side. In the northern lower peninsula, 3 on the side. If you look at your license sales, they're going down because guys like me, older guys, are starting to get out of it. And you have many guys that have hunted for years that are now leaving state to get a better hunt because they feel that the NRC is not listening to us. If we're going to work together and try to get problems resolved, kill more antlerless deer, we need to genuinely work together. Working together is not the NRC makes the rules and we have to follow them. It feels like with all the different studies we've done and committees that hunters have worked with DNR, it seems like no one ever listens. In the DMI, they made all kinds of recommendations and nothing got adopted. So I ask that you implement the APRs. Every study that's been around, you'll find 62% of the hunters like the APRs. So if you would, please go back and visit the APR CWD study and see what the numbers were. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, for a 3-minute public comment, is Kevin Lushetsky.
Very good, sir.
All right.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for me having this opportunity. I've never done anything like this before. I come from a different point of view from some of you have. I've grown up in Michigan my almost entire life, except for 2 years. I've hunted in Iowa, Illinois, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin. I've seen the different things that animals have to go through and people have to go through to do it. I don't relish the decisions that you guys have to make. You are standing and sitting in front of a very diverse crowd who has their own opinions, their own agendas of what they want to do. And you have to do what's best for the overall environment. And you also have to do what's best for the property rights of the people who own it. And that's the part where I'm coming from. Case in point, there are so many farms you drive around now, what happens, they're gone. Some of them are coming up, what's happening to them? They're being high fenced. Why are they being high fenced? Like the gentleman alluded to earlier, more deer. We're harvesting hundreds and hundreds of deer in our acreage. Why? Carrying capacity. Why the carrying capacity? Crops. Crops increase the carrying capacity of land. UP doesn't have the crops. You can't grow corn when you're getting 300 inches of snow. You can't plant it through rocks. They have a very diverse environment compared to what we have here in southern Michigan. I've seen farmers plant 15, 30,000 fruit trees. Following spring, 2/3 of them are gone. The deer have eaten them. You do the math. $5 to $10 a tree, depending on the species of tree. It's hard. They're trying to feed us with their crops and maintain and grow their families. It's a tough decision. Work with the biologists. That's one of the areas I don't understand, is how law enforcement can trump the biologists. Case in point, you can go down to Van Buren County, deal with the farmers that are down there. They get their management assist permits, they just go there and take care of it. You get to Benzie, Manistee, and some of the other counties, they have to call every day before they go to harvest deer off their property. They got to call in with their permit number, they got to call in with the shooter, and they got to call in what piece of property they're hunting from. Why is there a diverse practice from one side of the state when the other, when there's no clearly defined law that says they have to do it? Simplified regulation is the best thing we have in the state. Think about the regulations in this state from 4 years ago, when there were 20, 30 pages, to what, 7 pages now regulations? Granted, 7 pages are advertisements for some of the individual suppliers that you get it from, which is a good thing. So I don't envy you. Do what you can to do the best. And remember, the state is different from UP to the lower peninsula. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, for 3-minute public comment, is Travis Connor.
Hello, Commission. My name is Travis Connor. I am a deer tracker. I get called out by the general public to come out and locate their down game because they can't find. My initial plan to talk about today was to come out here and advocate for tracker dispatch, which if we walk up on a live animal and our hunters aren't with us, legally as it stands, we can't put that animal out of its misery. After seeing some of the things that other people are talking about, it really struck a chord with me. I decided I want to talk about youth hunt. Selfishly, I want kids to be able to shoot bucks because there's no better feeling for a tracker than coming out on a buck that they can't find. Their dad's already given up hope, told them they're not going to find it, and a half hour later they're sitting there grinning on biggest smile you've ever seen on a kid, holding up that buck with their grip grin. It's just not the same with a doe for them. I mean, last year, there was still 8 bucks. The does haven't, the doe rule hasn't come into effect. I just don't see the engagement out of people for just does, just because early doe season, we're lucky if we get a couple of calls or even one call to come out and locate a deer. Simple fact, people just don't want to shoot does like they should. I mean, in my area, you can go on a property and see 100 does, and that's a totally separate issue. Part of that's going to be education on hunters and how we do that. I mean, I try to do a job on doing that, trying to educate hunters that you need to. I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand.
No.
That if you want to see more bucks, because that's the number one thing that I get a complaint about when I'm sitting there walking with a hunter. We just haven't been seeing bucks. Like, well, sit down and ask yourself. There's too many does on your property. There's only going to be so many deer on a specific property with the carrying capacity. So I don't feel that we should punish kids for our adults and parents not taking the number of does that they should be. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comment. Next, for 3-minute comments, is Paul Sakinga.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here again to support the return of baby. I said here for years I've been bothering Chad and Sarah about scientific proof, evidence. Then I see this study presented here today with very little low percentages, not enough percentage of anything to justify all the money we have spent doing this. And the one thing that one guy, the doctor said would help is reduce numbers. When you restore baiting, it will reduce numbers and it will increase the number of hunters. I don't think it should be with a tax or a tag or a number, but I'm willing to give that to get back to baiting. I personally haven't hunted, as some of you know, for 7 years or more due to the ban on baiting. And I have studied, I've become a self-taught expert. I've wrote to every state and there's no evidence at all that baiting spreads CWD. They talk about nose-to-nose contact. I just went through Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, and what did I see? Hundreds of deer and elk in one little area when there was millions of acres, but they were all still nose-to-nose in that little area. We took pictures of probably 150 elk crossing the road, nose to tail, and so there is no evidence. It's come out, it's been true. You guys should listen to there is no scientific evidence and restore baiting so that more hunters will stay in it, like I told you last week. Now, I also, through being on the DMI and the DAT, I was kind of for antler restrictions until we went through all the scientific studies. As far as I know, there's been no study that proves that improves the health of the herd. And the only thing I see it proves is that older deer are more likely to have CWD. So I, in turn, don't want you to do hunter restrictions. Plus, northern Michigan needs those hunters that come up and get their deer and then want to hunt for that trophy buck. They still keep bringing in dollars and dollars to come up there and hunt when they're not going to shoot anything else. I know that the town of White Cloud that I'm in and Baldwin and up through that area really needs those hunters back. So thank you for your time. And the only thing I'd like to see you guys do next is make some way we can interact with you. I've tried phone calling. A lot of you guys are new. I tried to call Miss Humphreys last week. I was traveling, but I took time out to make phone calls, never got one back. I called Mr. Early 3 times, never got one back. So we don't get to interact, to discuss. All we get to come here and I preach at you, and you guys shake your heads, yea or nay, and then we walk away. I really think there should be some type of hearings or work studies where there can be give and take between the hunters. And thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next is Josh.
That'd be me.
Josh, you're going to introduce yourself to everybody.
Brooke's just shaking her head. Josh Arbogast, from St. Clair Shores, downstate. Coming as an independent public land hunter. I want to talk about just a couple things. Try to get through it fast because I can see now that I'm going to make some friends in this room. Or not. So this time last year, I was really excited sitting home watching the things that CMI was bringing to you guys. I had high expectations. Only to watch pretty much all of it fall apart throughout the season and after your guys' votes. In conjunction, we went on and decided to slash the coyote season and put rest period in. We have so many coyotes in the state that I have them running through my backyard down in St. Clair Shores, 2 blocks north of 8 in Detroit. I see them in Detroit all the time. They're being pushed out of their habitat. If you hunt them, they will move back into their original habitat and not push out into the cities. Last weekend on a drive to Elmont, it was a 25-mile drive. I was going to a friend's house. I counted 6 dead roadkill coyotes on M53. I watched the coyote tailing a wandering farm dog at deer camp this year that was walking off of the property that I was unable to save the dog. I don't know what happened to that dog. Leading into that, what impact is that having on our deer herd? And I say that to say this, that was another indirect misstep in our deer management plan. And what about the health of our deer herd going forward? We talk balanced age structure, sustainable population size, and habitat carrying capacity all over the state. Minimal disease, acceptable buck-to-doe ratios, and what are we actually doing to encourage these factors? Hunters with the help of regulations have selfishly neglected the health of the deer herd, and that's for many years. And I am a passionate hunter. I am in the woods 100 days a year. Why are we so afraid to change these things? There's a fine line in contrast of responsibility of management and harvest choice. APR was proposed before lunch. 2% of hunters didn't work to control that doe habitat. How are we going to force our hunters to shoot more does? It's not going to happen through education. It's not happening. It's not the kids, it's the adults. It's the mentors that are creating this problem. So throw something to the wall, see what sticks, whether it be 1 buck, APRs, anything statewide, anything to encourage doe harvest. We have to get this buck-to-doe ratio in check. I hear the baiting mumblings. A healthy, balanced herd should be our #1 concern before we even consider things like baiting. And I think anything less is a selfish act on the sportsman's part. See you next time.
All right, thank you for coming. Next, for a 3-minute comment, Justin Root.
All right, Justin Root, it's my first meeting here. I'm born and raised in Howell. I moved to Illinois, lived there for 12 years, and I moved back last year. So I have the privilege to hunt in Illinois, not necessarily live there. But I was one of the few guys who was actually probably leaving the state of Illinois to buy a non-resident tag and come back and hunt Michigan. I've hunted since before I was legal to carry a weapon. I'd sit in a tree stand and just watch deer, separate from my dad. So near and dear to my heart, I spent a lot of time in the woods and in a tree. And I can't, I think a lot of people would agree with me that Michigan as a whole probably has the worst whitetail hunting experience of all the deer states in the Midwest. And a lot of the driving fact of that is the out of balance deer herd. You guys had your hands full with the UP situation. That's, not what I'm talking about. I'm hunting zone 3, mostly the entire lower peninsula. And there's clearly, if you, talk to people, there's clearly a buck to doe ratio issue. Hunters are not taking enough does. And that goes back to the old school mentality. I think that we've given the old guard the opportunity to do that themselves, and they've clearly failed. So for me, again, buying tags the last 25 years in the state, virtually nothing has changed from tag structure, and we're still fighting the same exact battle where we're taking too many bucks and not enough does. So I think it's got to, come down to you guys at DNR working together on making changes and forcing the change with our hunters, because it's clear at this point that they're not going to. And we all talk about this like Liberty Hunt and trying to get, youth hunters into it. It's great to let them, hunt before the season. But for me, if you guys want to impact the hunting experience, there's no better hunting experience than watching rutting white-tailed deer hunting in the woods. And if you want the youth to get really excited, it's putting them in that situation. And by driving a more balanced buck-to-doe ratio, forcing that through, tag changes, you're going to have a better hunting experience for those guys as well and recruit more hunters. So, my thing, we talked about APRs, Pennsylvania is a great case study on that with APRs. I personally would like to see 1 buck, 1 doe on the combo tag. That still gives people who want to shoot their buck, the first buck they see, that gives them the opportunity to do that. Everyone's still getting 2 deer tags with their combo license, so they have the availability to get the meat. But I think there's a lot of hunters that shoot the first buck they see, knowing full well they have another tag to wait for that bigger deer. So I think that, again, we can eliminate some of the younger deer getting shot because people don't have the opportunity to wait, but they can still get their meat. So again, on you guys, looking to the future of hunting in the state. I've got an 18-month-old at home. I want a great experience for him. Something needs to be changed in the regulations. Again, it hasn't happened in 30 years. And hopefully we can make some changes. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public comment period. It's 3:20 p.m. Brooke, do you have point of clarification?
Yes. So I just wanted to make note. So we have the deer regulations order up for information, and Commissioner Walters have requested an amendment for APRs. However, Table 2 is open, but Table 2 is open for the Liberty and Independence hunts. None of the sections that refer to APRs are open in the order, and we would also have to create a new section. So therefore, we would not meet notice requirements because those are not in the current order. So we have deer regulations coming up for 2026. So I would recommend looking at those at that point. Otherwise, we will not meet any deadlines for printing.
Just so that I'm clear, it's not a 30-day time frame between now and our next meeting?
We have to have it posted for information for public comment requirements. So
For what duration of time?
30 days.
And there's not 30 days between today and our next meeting?
Our meeting, it's got to be for information at the next meeting. And I think Nate could also confirm our notice requirement.
Yeah, he put in for a card.
Well, we took it.
Okay.
We'll get to it. A minute and a half or something. Let me finish on this point.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
And I apologize, somehow your card got lost in the shuffle, maybe literally. Please come on up.
I didn't hear what the explanation was from Nate.
Yes, the Brooke is correct.
So we have to have it posted for information notice. So we have legislative requirements. So basically, I just noticed our current meeting to the legislature. So once we actually have to draft that order, because we don't have a section for APRs in the Lower Peninsula at all. So that would be a new section in Waco that the Wildlife Division would have to create.
Okay, what about the other proposal that I brought forward that was suggested that is not in
The antlerless and the UP?
Yes.
That is open. That section is open.
So I can
in
make
the
that
current order.
recommendation.
Yes, we can draft that amendment for you for consideration by the commission in May.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself. I don't have your card, so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm Lance DeVoe. I'm a lifelong Michigan hunter and fisherman. I'm also vice president of Michigan Bow Hunters. In addition, I'm on the board of directors of Gilbert Sportsman's Club in Macomb County and a member of Compton Traditional Bow Hunters as well. I'm speaking on behalf of Michigan Bow Hunters primarily here. Honesty compels me to make a statement I never thought I'd make. I agree with the animal rights people that the geese should not be suffocated and the meat wasted. As a bow hunter, I think you should give the bow hunters the opportunity to hunt these animals like we do other game resources in the state of Michigan and utilize the meat of the goose myself. I'd also like to add my voice to the others that have said we should restore the full-year coyote hunt. As we've seen, there's no reason to shorten the season. There's no scientific reason, biological reason to shorten the season. I believe that the NRC's primary mission is to maximize the use of our renewable resources here in the state of Michigan, and I think that would help to accomplish that task. With that, I'll give it back to Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, now that does conclude public comment, and it's 3:25. There is one, we're moving on to the agenda, to new business. There's one action item for the director this month for information. It's proposed May 1, 2025 oil and gas lease auction. Director Bowen?
Yes, I intend to sign that proposal and auction off some property for oil and gas.
Question? Seeing none. There are also 2 land transactions this month. Do you want to cover those?
Yep, I intend to sign those 2 land transactions.
Okay. There are 3 new orders for information for the director and the NRC this month that were presented during the director's report. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Lowe.
Sure. So wildlife conservation order number 6 of 2025, small game regulations. And number 2, wildlife conservation order amendment number 7 of 2025, fall turkey regulations. And wildlife conservation order amendment number 8 of 2025 for deer regulations. Those are all subject to next month, right? Is that right? Yeah, next month. And we'll deal with them then.
Questions or comments? Okay, now we're moving on to old business. There's 1 item under old business this month for the director, and 3 items eligible for action for the NRC and director. Under director matters, land use order for the director number 5 of 2025.
I plan to sign the land use order amendment number 5 of 2025.
NRC director orders, we have the wildlife conservation order amendment number 3 of 2025 regarding waterfowl regulations. Is there a motion to approve? Yes.
Make a motion.
Moved by Commissioner Anthony. Is there support?
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, wildlife conservation order amendment number 4 of the 2025 coyote hunting season dates. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we table this for further discussion down the road.
There's been a motion to table. There's no discussion on is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. There's no discussion. There are Robert's rules on a tabling motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the Wildlife Conservation Order Amendment Number 5, 2025, dog training limit on bears. Is there a motion on this amendment?
I make a motion.
Moved. Is there support?
Support.
Moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Walters.
it wasn't all that long ago, bear hunters could have 6 dogs in the woods. They came to us and requested 8, which was granted. Now they're coming to us for 10 dogs in the woods. Where does it end? Number one, and I don't see the point. I don't want to use the ethical chase and fair chase, because that's not a very fair discussion, but 10 dogs in the woods is a great deal of number of dogs in the woods, and I will not support this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Seeing none. On the motion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. In the interest of an accurate vote, let's have a roll call on this one, if you don't mind. Commissioner Walters.
No.
Commissioner Anthony.
Yes.
Commissioner Ridley.
No.
Commissioner Humphries.
Yes.
Commissioner Laporte.
No.
Commissioner Nyberg is absent. And chair votes aye. Motion carries.
No, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I had. Oh, I'm sorry, was that 3?
3-3.
I'm sorry. I was counting from 7. My apologies. The motion fails due to a lack of majority. Thank you. Thanks for doing the math for me as well. We now have commissioner reports, and we'll start, if you don't mind. Commissioner Walters, we'll start and just go down the line.
I would like to thank everybody who's here. It takes a lot to get here. It's a big crowd. Everybody seems to be very passionate about whatever position that they hold, and I love the passion. So keep coming. If you feel free to reach out to me, I'll be more than happy to take your call or email. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anthony.
Winter continues, on and on. We get snow. It seems like every week we get a batch of snow, and I think we have some more scheduled for this week. But there is also...
Shame on you.
It's my fault, me a co-pilot. But you can see that the transition to activities and the waterways are looking really appealing. So it's not a difficult time, it's a time of anticipation.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Yeah, nothing to report.
Commissioner Humphries.
No, I'll keep it short. It's been a long meeting. Thanks for coming and giving us your ideas and your thoughts.
Commissioner Laporte.
Same. Again, I appreciate everybody coming. It's a lot to give up your time to come and give us your opinions. And as we've seen today, there's plenty of them in the room, right? And all valid, all come from a good place, and doesn't make the decisions of the commission any easier. So we've got to find the facts and base it on good science. And certainly, I think that's what this board would do. And I'd like to welcome the committee member and her willingness to take on the vice chair role. Hopefully, she won't have to do it too often. Mr. Gilby shows up all the time, and which I expect you will. But again, I appreciate everybody's time and your involvement. Thank you.
Director Bowen?
Yeah. So yesterday we had a unique happening in 13 years ago, we began planning a lock and dam to block the Asian carp to the other side of the Continental Divide at Brandon Road, Illinois. Yesterday, the President of the United States endorsed the project along with Governor Whitmer in the Oval Office. It is the largest public works project in history, $1.3 billion to keep the Asian carp out of the Great Lakes. Our team has been working on it for 13 years. It probably started when you were director.
I had a meeting in the White House on this very issue and got snowed into DC for an entire week. And it's not nearly as positive, so bless you.
It's not quite done yet because Illinois has to sign on. So if any of you have an inclination to support this important thing, these Asian carp are devastating to our fishermen, devastating to our steelheaders, walleye fishermen. Everywhere in the Great Lakes will be affected eventually by these Asian carp. So if you have an inclination, reach out, use it. I don't know what this Facebook thing is, but I understand that people talk. Unleash the support. It's important. It's important stuff. 13 years to make. The Army Corps has come up with this wonderful plan. The barges go through first an acoustic, well, first bubbles to keep the carp back, and then an acoustic, they can't stand this noise, then an electrification, and then they do the flushing of the lock and dam, and it's really remarkable what they've planned. It took a long time. They've been keeping them at bay with an electric weir further down the river, but this solution is going to keep them out of Lake Michigan. So, and it's a great thing. Great thing.
How long will it take?
It'll take another. The first phase they could have done in a year and a half or so. That will do a lot of it. That's the bubbles and the acoustic part. Then they got a phase 2 and 3, and those are going to be 2030. So it's going to be a while. We have to get a shovel in the ground to get it started so we can get it finished.
My meeting was in 2008. 2008.
And these fish came in by accident, really. They brought them over to farm them in the Mississippi overflood. They flooded, and they got into the Mississippi system up and down, and they're dealing with them in most states, and Illinois is dealing with them up and down the Des Plaines in Mississippi.
Is this the only entrance point to Lake Michigan?
No, there's others, but there's another natural defense up by Minnesota that we think will hold, and getting around to Lake Erie is a long way off. So they're working on those solutions as well. This one's the most important, and it was bipartisan. Thank you.
It is. It's an important step forward. I've only worked on it for 12 years myself. In fact, mentioning getting stuck in Washington for a week, I was snowed in Washington for 12 years.
Because I barely survived a week.
Felt like 12.
Oh.
But it was gratifying to see that bipartisan support, particularly among public officials who don't always agree on everything. One of the things I came to understand in my 12 years in Congress, while there were lots of contentious issues, there was one thing that unified Michigan, the Michigan delegation, Democrats and Republicans across the political spectrum, and that was the protection of the Great Lakes. Through the Great Lakes Initiative, for sure, but specifically on the issue of invasive species, and most particularly on the issue of Asian carp. I visited the Brandon Lock site with the Army Corps of Engineers many years ago to push this forward. Many of us worked to get the authorization in the federal budget, and now to get the appropriation to actually begin some of this work. And I do know it takes a long time, but I always think to myself, especially when it comes to our stewardship responsibility, is that I wish somebody would have started on this 25 or 30 years ago. We started on it 15 or so years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, 17 years ago. The journey of 1,000 steps starts with 1,000 miles starts with a single step. We've taken many, many steps on this. It's really an important move. We've got more work to do. We need to reach out to our friends in other parts of the Midwest to recognize that protecting the Great Lakes is not just important to the Midwest, it's really important to the greatest freshwater source in the known universe. We always used to say on the planet, it's the greatest source of freshwater in the known universe, and we have a particular obligation to protect it for many generations to come. I'm glad to see that this is in place. The only other thing I would add, that's only my third meeting and I did mention some of my previous work. You know, we have disagreement in this room, we have disagreement on the, sometimes from time to time on the commission, we have disagreement between the stakeholders, but sitting here and listening to a whole variety of views being presented in a way that, at least compared to my most recent experience, is highly civil, very respectful, and I do want to express my appreciation for that. You're welcome. Now, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved, and is there support? Adjourned? Support. Move support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Next meeting is May 8th in this very same location.